All right, welcome back to the You Can't Fool You podcast. I'm here with owner of Hall of Fame Personal Training, Eddie Hall. What's up, man?
What's up?
So every time that I come to do a workout, I always get a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
Because I'm not usually nervous to work out. Your workouts are always
intense
or high energy.
Yeah.
So,
but you kill it though every time. You know what I mean? I get nervous too because like you're really good at the kettlebell stuff. So like I know in your head you like how you are with like the form and stuff. So I'm always like, dude, don't let me mess up this stuff. But you know what I mean? I feel like when we work out together, I feel like we take things from each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like we'll sit there and we'll go hard, but we also have conversations where it's like, hey, what would you do if this happened? Or what would you do? You know, we were talking about my ankle or my Achilles and stuff like that. And it's just like I feel like with me and you, you're smarter beyond what you believe you are. And I always take things when you come around, I always take things from you, just like you take things from me. Like you take my energy and my high interval like training stuff, and like I take the kettlebell stuff. I take more of like the things you say and how you say them. I try to like incorporate that. You know, like last time we met up, you gave me that journal, dude. Like that meant a lot to me because it's like. We're in an industry where it's like really watered down, right? Let's be honest. It's watered down, and like a lot of people are only your friends during what they can gain from you. And I felt like a genuine connection with you when we first started because it wasn't like, oh, what are you going to do for me? It was just like, yo, let's meet up, let's work out. And if we click, we click. If we don't, we don't. And we did. Absolutely. And then you moved to Nantucket, and we still kept in touch. It was like, yo, what are you doing? Like, yo, I love this. I love that. Like, it wasn't like, it was just genuine. And you don't really, it's really hard to meet people in this industry that are genuine like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the first part was like, I had heard your name come up a bunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I heard of the name before, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I kept hearing, I was like, I got to reach out to this guy.
Yeah.
Everybody says how good he is. I was like, dude, there's no competing. We both work with kids. Yeah. There's no competing. It's all about, for me, I would say collaboration. And then when I was like, dude, I just want to come work out. Yeah. See what you're all about. And I came in to the gym, felt the energy. Yeah. You just brought the energy. And I was like, man, this guy.
It's because I love this stuff. You know what I mean?
I just, you are.
It is. And like, you always talk about, like, what were you made for? You know what I mean? Like, what were you made for? And I really believe this is what I was made for. Yeah. To just like motivate people to be better because I'm constantly pushing myself. You know, I'm 37 and like guys come in here half my age and they're like, I don't know how you do this at 37, let alone 20, 19, 18. You know what I mean? It's just who I am as a person. You know, I'm very intense, but I'm goofy too. You know what I mean? Like I want to get the work done, but I want you to have fun at the same time. Like I'm not a drill sergeant.
Yeah, you have to have fun. But you can see that you're all about it. Like
all about it.
And the word that comes to mind is authentic.
Yeah.
Like, what you see is
what you get.
Is what you get. But like I think that's why we clicked initially because like you could feel it. Like you can't fake it.
Yeah.
You're authentic or you're not.
And we went over that before, right? Yeah. Like I told you I had that like almost imposter syndrome where it was like, you know, like you said you heard my name and like all these good things. And I think to myself like, well, why? Like, why me? Like, you know, why are people coming to me? Why this? Why that? And I've gotten to the point now through like therapy and stuff where I'm like, no, I deserve that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because I work my ass off. You know that. I work hard. And I'm just trying to make people better. That's it. Whether they're athletes or just your regular 9-to-5 working people, I just want them to be better. And I want them to come in and feel, you know, a part of a family in here. It's a community, but it's not like, yeah, you pay your gym membership and then you leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
right.
I want you to be able to, you know, reach out to me, hey, I'm having a bad day, can I come in? You know what I mean? Like that's how I started my business, and that's how it's going to end. You know what I mean?
I think people are looking for that too.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's take it back. So, how did you get into personal training? What prompted you to start?
Yeah, so unfortunately, like my wrestling career got cut short. I have ulcerative colitis, and I got real sick when I was at Shippensburg, and just I wasn't making the best choices either. But I got real sick. I ended up one day, my mom and sister came up and they were like, "You don't look good." So we went to the doctors and they had to take me straight home. I'd had like 4 blood transfusions. I lost so much blood.
What year were you at this point?
I was a freshman.
Freshman.
Yeah. So I ended up leaving there. I went to Delaware County Community College, got my associates there, graduated with honors, and like they gave me an award for like overcoming like my disease and stuff like that. Because like it did. It took a lot out of me. I was in and out of the hospital, losing like 20, 30 pounds at a time and stuff like that. And, you know, I lost wrestling, which was my first love, you know what I mean? Where it was like, and I just felt like I didn't accomplish everything that I set out to accomplish. I kind of fell into bad habits where, you know, we're being completely transparent here, where I was just like out there drinking and like doing dumb stuff. It came to a point where I like missed the training, like not just the wrestling aspect, but the training aspect of like how far I could push my body. So I started working out, and then you know I had a few friends that are like coming out to work out, and they're like, "Yo, you should like really do this." You know what I mean? So I ended up going and getting my personal training certificate through World Instructing Training Schools, which was like a summer program at Delaware County. And then I went to Westchester. I was studying exercise science, and my teacher was like, "What do you want to do with this degree?" You know what I mean? Pretty much like, "Do you want to be a teacher?" And I was like, "No, like I don't. Like I just want to own my own gym, train athletes and stuff like that." And he's like, "Look, like me being completely transparent, he's like, this is just exaggerated, you know, personal training certificate. That's what that is. Like without the kinesiology aspect of it." Right. He was like, "So you could start your business right now if you wanted to." So that kind of sparked me where I was like, you know what? Yeah, let me start this business. So instead of finishing out that schooling, I went and got weightlifting, USA weightlifting certified, CrossFit certified. I did speed and agility and quickness, got all that stuff over the years. You know what I mean? I just compounded all them certificates, and you know they're just pieces of paper.
Yeah, I look at them as like tools in your tool.
Yeah, that's all it is. And like the things I've learned through doing this is what helped me build my business. It wasn't right. The schooling's great. Don't get me wrong. Like you learn a lot about the body and stuff, but like it's more of all right, I've done this before, or I've trained somebody just like this before, or with this injury before.
Yeah.
This is what's going to work. This isn't. And at the end of the day, you can have as much education as you want, but the hands-on training is where you're going to be successful.
You got to be able to coach.
Exactly. And you know, like my personality kind of just kicked it off. Where like you said, like you could feel the energy. I love this stuff. Yeah. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to build my business. So I actually started out of my sister's garage. It was like maybe as big as this, 400 square feet. Started with like 2 or 3 clients. I was making like $150 a week, but I was only 20 years old. So it was like, I could live off that at that point. You know what I mean? I was still living at home and stuff. And then, you know, one day I was driving down McDade Boulevard and I seen like a storefront, and I'm like, I wonder if I could afford that.
Yeah.
So I talked to my dad. We went and looked at it, and then I put the money down. I started like a little studio. You know, it was 800 square feet. And it blew up, you know, like it just, I guess people seen us in the parking lot and like, you know, running around McDade, which is a busy street. And they're like, what are these people doing? So I had a lot of people coming in there. And then obviously you seen the other gym I had. That was my second location. And this is my third. So that's pretty much history right there. You know what I mean?
Was there fear going into it? Like, were you scared? Have any sort of self-doubt as you were?
I was.
Or were you too young?
I was too young. I was too young where I was like, you know, $150, you know, a week or 200 hours a week was like, I had money in my pocket. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have to pay for anything else. So it was like, and then once I started making like real money where it was like, you know, I had 10, 15 steady clients that are coming in. And then I started training fighters. That's where like I blew up at. that's when it was like, wow, like this could be lucrative. You know what I mean? And not only lucrative, but I get to wake up and do what I would do anyway. You know what I mean? Like
just be doing
like I'll be doing it anyway, and then like I don't have to go to a gym. I have my own. You know what I mean? So it was just like it was like now I'm all in. You know what I mean? And then obviously I started a family and stuff, and it was like, can I support my family? Can I have a house? Can I have this? Can I have that? That's when the doubts started creeping in.
Right.
I still have them where it's like, you have your busy season and you have your like dull season, and you go through them times where you're like, damn, like I really got to build this up. And then all of a sudden it's like so busy that you're like, I need a break. I need a break.
Yeah.
Like, so like you're always going to have those doubts, but I believe in myself enough that like, personal training and running a gym, like that, I always say running a gym, running a small business gym, like where it's like small, you sell yourself. That's what you're selling.
Yeah, people are
you know what I mean? Like you could go anywhere and get a good workout, right? Like and feel good about yourself and stuff. Like, but it's how you feel when you're in the workout, and the person that's training you, how you feel with them is what they come for.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I believe that like I treat everybody like family, and I don't just see them as dollar signs. Exactly.
It's relationship.
Yeah. If you're going through a rough time, like, hey, you know what I mean? Like listen, I run a business. I have to make money, but I understand the world nowadays. You're going to go through tough times, and like you're like, hey, like, can I pay you next week? We'll work something out. I'm not that kind of guy that's like, no, you need to do that or get out of my gym, because I want this place to be a family oriented place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want people to feel comfortable.
And you can feel it though. It's different. It's different going to like say like Mainline or like the Edge.
Yeah.
Lifetime.
Exactly.
They're going for it's just a bigger box gym. They're coming to see Eddie Hall.
Yeah.
When they come here.
Exactly.
The relationship, how you make them feel, they know that you have the best interest. They're not just a dollar sign.
Yeah, exactly.
It's relationship based. How did you get into working with fighters?
So I wrestled my whole life, you know what I mean? And then like MMA obviously was like blowing up at the time of when I was like 20. And I was doing jujitsu here and there. I didn't really like train it fully, but then two of my buddies that I grew up with wrestling, they were taking MMA fights, and they were like, yo, you want to train me? And I said, yeah. So I trained them, and they went undefeated for like, I think they went 3-0. So then I got my first pro fighter, which his name was Jimmy Dewar. And after that, he introduced me to another guy and another, and it just blew up where it was like, I had some of the best fighters in the area coming, and my name was getting out there of like, yo, you need to go see this guy if you want like more like strength and conditioning, because you can spar and do all that stuff as much as you want. If you're not doing the extra stuff, you're not doing your sprinting, you're not doing your circuits, you're not at least strength training for your camp and stuff, that's going to take a toll on the fight. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much how I started. And then it just became like a niche for me, where like a lot of the fighters are just coming here and they're getting good workouts, and we have a good relationship,
Do a lot of fighters, do they kind of not take the strength and conditioning part as seriously?
They do now.
They do now.
When it first came about, it was kind of like, 5-minute round circles. That's what it was. Like when you first seen like UFC come about and all that, the guys were training, and it was like outside the box training where they're like heavy bag slams and stuff like that, which is great. It's great. But you also have to have your primary lifts too, like your push presses, your front squats, stuff like that, because in the off season of fighting, like when you're not fighting, you have to gain muscle. That's the only time you can gain muscle, because most of the time these guys are cutting weight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, you could keep muscle on during the camp, but you're not going to build a whole lot of muscle during the camp. You know what I mean? You could keep it on. You could become faster. You can become a little bit stronger and very much more conditioned.
Yeah.
But, like, it's after the fact that, like, you have to keep up with it. And that was, like, the biggest part. Like, a lot of guys, like, in the beginning would, they would train when they had a camp, and then it would be like, all right, I'm going to take a month off, or I'm going to take, not do anything. Go train MMA, but they wouldn't lift weights and stuff like that. And if they did, it wasn't as serious. You know, I feel like now it's like a full time thing.
Yeah.
Like these fighters are serious.
Yeah, and I think kind of all sports are kind of like that now.
Yeah, you have to.
And the strength and conditioning side is just a part of it now.
Well, let's be honest. You know, if you're going to be a college athlete, right, and you're just as skilled as someone else, and your grade point average is as good as someone else, but that person knows how to move around the weight room, and you don't, who's getting scholarship? You know, exactly.
I always say to the kids that are going in, if you want to make a name for yourself, show them that you're a beast in the weight room. Exactly. Because the coaches will look around and they're like, see his work ethic.
See his work ethic.
Absolutely. You know, the coaches are paying attention.
They are, and they're not. It's not nothing detrimental, but it's like if you don't know how to front squat and this guy does, if you don't know how to hang clean or power clean and this guy does, why am I going to spend the time to teach you that when I could just take this dude that's just as good as you and take, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you have to be like as strong as the other guy, but know what you're doing.
Because I also say for young kids, even like, so you could say both. Yeah. Kids from middle school going into high school, even not all the high school kids are super serious, but I would say learn how. And one of the fastest ways to show up as a leader, to like make a name for, is to just know what you're doing in the weight room. Because what's automatically going to happen? I tell the middle school kids this all the time. If you know what you're doing, you can help other kids. Yeah. And then the coaches are going to be looking around and be like, look at him, look at her. They're helping. They're being a leader. They're helping all the other kids with the lifts. They know what they're doing. Well, that's the fastest way to get noticed. Exactly. And that's how you, exactly. That's how you get noticed. I have a kid that I've been working with since he was like probably in 5th grade. He's in 8th grade now, and he's starting to lift with the high school, and they're just all automatically noticing like, yo, this kid's got something. You know, it's like not just because of the weight room, he's a good quarterback, but in the weight room, he's a dog. You know, he maybe weighs like, I think he weighs maybe 130 pounds and he's benching like 165. Yeah. You know, like he's just like a dog in the weight room where it's like, if you tell him something, he's going to go do it. If I'm like, hey, you need to do 100 push-ups a night and 50 pull-ups a night, he's going to do it. Because he just has that work ethic, and that's going to outweigh talent any day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it is. And that's how you get noticed, and they're already noticing him, and he's getting like looks at, and it's cool to see because I've had him since he was 5th grade. Right. And now he's like growing up into a young man, and it's like, dude, like this kid's got something. Yeah. You know? Well, that's great. And it sounds like he's coachable. So very. The main purpose of this podcast really is to create a platform for youth, high school, college athletes to kind of have place for development. And because we both coach them, I think this is a great question to ask. Is like, you're in it. You see these kids all the time. Yeah. What are you seeing with kids? What are you seeing with the kids when they come in? What are some things that you notice? It could be good, it could be bad. The biggest thing is parents. You know, like helicopter parents. Yeah. You know, I don't have many of them, but you can kind of tell the parents that are pushing their kids to come in and the kids that want to come in. You know what I mean? And that plays a big factor in not just sports and strength and conditioning, but like overall life, right? Like you don't want to be pushing. It's good to push your kid to a point, and then it's like he or she needs to develop a work ethic that they want to go after that goal. Right. We can't live through our kids, right? Like I have 4 kids and we can't live through them. It's like, I'll give you all the tools and I'll give you all the tools and the foundation. I can't build you the house. You have to want to build the house. Prepare the child, not the... Exactly. So like you'll get parents that are in here like, you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's like, am I the one training them, or are you? You train. Yeah, exactly. So, or let me do my job. Like even like warming up, it's like I'll say high knees, and it's like it's a warm up. Like I'm not like particularly where I'm like they need to be higher. I'm like as long as they're moving and getting the lactic acid, out of their system, building their blood flow in their legs, and like doing the things I ask them to do. They don't have to go super hard on it. Just off direction. Yeah, be intentional about the warm up.
I love that. I love that slogan of being intentional. You know what I mean? Like everything you do should be intentional. Like if you're going to do things, you don't do them half-ass.
No, that is the one thing with kids that they will half-ass the warm up. If you think about your dynamic warm up, the things in there, like a lot of your power speed drills, are in there. The more you do them, like be intentional with your A skips, your high shuffles, all those things. That's be intentional because those are really practiced.
But you also have to understand as a kid where their mind is. It's like they don't understand the importance of warming up.
Kids don't really need to warm up.
As you get older, it's like, dude, I gotta warm up. I'm gonna pull my back out.
Yep.
But like as a kid, you think about when you were a kid, right? Like you would just go into the weight room and just start, and like it wouldn't bother you at all. And now it's like, dude, if I go and try to squat right now, like my knees are gonna be blown out.
You're gonna be done.
So like it's kind of hard. You put yourself in their shoes where it's like, I don't think they're half-assing it all the time. I think it's more of like, why am I doing this? And if you explain it to them, if you're like, hey, this is going to make you faster. This is not only, it's going to help you with your hip flexors. It's going to help, like warm them up. And the more warm they get, the more you're going to be able to stretch. The more they start to understand, like, oh, this is part of the workout. This isn't just the warm up. Yeah, it's part of our 45-minute hour session. You know what I mean?
I also think about it with kids too, is like, what's the goal? When it comes to training kids, the reason I like saying be intentional about it because it's good lifelong practice.
Exactly.
Eventually, at some point, you're going to really have to warm up. You can't just walk in.
No.
When you get to our age.
Exactly.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
I don't usually feel good.
Yeah.
But get the practice in of warming up early, so that way as they continue on, it's like, oh, it's just what I do.
And to be honest, like we'll both be honest. The warm up's the worst part of the workout. It is. It's the worst.
It is.
You're getting your blood flowing. The first high knees you do are bounding. You're out of breath. You know what I mean? No matter how in shape you are,
it's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. But once you hit that warm up point where it's like, I'm sweating a little bit and my joints are oiled up, and you feel great. You feel like a Superman.
Yep, your mind's clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Locked in.
And that's the biggest thing is the mind's clear. Like you're locked into. Now it's time to perform.
Yeah,
that
a lot of the reason why I think the warm up sucks is it's more of a mental barrier.
Exactly.
It's more.
Yeah.
But then once you get moving, you're like you feel good. I'm sure there's probably plenty of times you've gone to the gym. You're like, I can't even do this right now, and then you just start
today was one man. We met at that hill, and I'm like, we're doing our high knees, our plyometrics and stuff, and I'm just like out of breath. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be a long one. It's
gonna be tough.
And then after the first round, I was like, all right, this is all right. Like my blood's flowing now, and by the end, I felt great.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Outside, get some sun.
Yeah,
sweat.
We did an hour workout at the hill. Me, Rockne, and my nephew. So we got after it today. Before this.
Get the mind clear.
Yeah, exactly.
So a couple more questions here. Well, how did you get into training kids?
I just, when I first started my business, I started doing like kids classes. I had these, they're over there. So you see that body bar?
Yeah.
So I would be, I was trying to teach kids like how to squat properly, how to, balance themselves, how important coordination is and stuff. And it just took off, and then I actually the coolest thing I've ever done was I did pre-K fitness for 3 years for a bunch of schools around here.
Yeah.
And that was a real eye-opener where it was I went with a different approach. I didn't run it like a gym class. I went in there and we worked out. I taught them how to do hand release push-ups.
Right.
The teachers were just wowed because they were the kids just listen to you. If we told them to do that, they would laugh at us and run around. But as soon as I started talking to these kids, I would do I would say pencil and they would stand up and, you know what I mean? That was our rest. And it was just really cool to see these kids develop. You see them run around and they're all goofy, and then by the end they're running with almost pretty good form and stuff. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah. They do adapt. They do adapt quickly. It is super rewarding when you're training a kid. Yeah. I'll just use in the dynamic warm for example. You see kids and it's the reverse lunges look a little bit raw. the side lunges, the high knees, and then like 2-3 weeks later, they're like, that's pretty good. But the key is, those are the kids that usually show up to every class.
Exactly.
They listen. They work hard. They are intentional about wanting to get better. Yeah. They get better very quickly. Very quickly.
Kids pick up very quick. I mean, even babies. You watch babies; they have perfect squat form, right?
Yeah.
Like, you ever see a baby like squat down? Dude, it's perfect depth. You know, they don't think about it. So so that's already ingrained in our head. We just have to refine them skills as we get older, because our legs get longer. You know what I mean? Our muscles get bigger. You know, some kids are tall with long legs. Some kids are tall with short legs. And it's just about like refining those skills based on your body type. You know, the biggest thing I say is like, I'll do like the agility ladder as a warm up sometimes. And just seeing kids learn how to move their body. You know, like, you see them, like, you're doing your jab steps and stuff, and they're all over the place. And then the next week, it's like, they do it perfect. And it's like, now they can't mess up if they try, because, like, they've been doing it for so long that it becomes natural to them.
Yeah. But I think another thing I see with kids is interesting. How do you feel like you command the respect of the kids? Because, you know, some kids, they try to talk back. Yeah. They're not necessarily respectful.
No, I got it.
What do you do to command the respect?
I think it's more of my presentation of myself, and like, most of the time when my clients come in, I'm working out right before they come in. Yeah. So they kind of see me getting after it, and they're like, oh, this dude's serious.
Yeah,
like,
he means
business. And then, like, you know, if you meet me like outside of here and I don't say a word, I kind of look like real serious, but then things coming out of my mouth and you're just like, yo, this dude's a goofball. So I try to initiate with them a level of respect, like, as not just a trainer, but like, as I want to say, like, almost like a friend. Like, yo, you're here, we're here for 45 minutes. Listen to me, and I'm guaranteeing you're going to feel better, and you're going to look and do better at whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if not, then you have to be honest, you know, with the parents and be like, hey, you know, so-and-so is not listening to me. So either we have to have a conversation, or I'm not going to be able to train them anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's a hard conversation to have, but it's a conversation you need to have, because you don't want to waste your time either, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like, and you easily could. But we're the type of people that care about results, right? We care about our clients. We're not in here running it and just being like, oh, he's going to pay me anyway, so I'll just have him doing squats. We're in here to make them better. So it's like, let's have these hard conversations. Yeah. And I think that the hard conversations with the kids is what demands respect. Because it's like, yo, this guy cares about me.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And kids
can feel that.
They know whether you care or not.
Yeah, they know. Yeah, exactly.
Some coaches out there that
you're just money. You're just money.
For sure.
You know, you're one of 30 in a group. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It comes back to authenticity too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's what how I demand respect, where it's kind of like, and I've developed like a system, because I've coached wrestling for so long. Yeah. You know, I started coaching wrestling when I was 21, so I'm coaching kids that are close to my age.
Yeah.
You know, in high school. And it was just a level of respect where it was like, yo, this guy like knows his stuff, and he's here to make us better. He's not here to, you know, yell at us and do that. He's here for my benefit. Right. You know what I mean?
And I think there's an age gap too. Mm-hmm. You're close enough to their age where, you know, you can see yourself in them.
Yeah.
And they can kind of see like themselves in you a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're in that gap where you kind of bridge the gap from like, all right, I remember doing those things, but I'm kind of a little bit older, wiser, more experienced, where now I have the perspective. And so I think the age plays a big thing, because the kids can then feel like, you know, you actually can relate to
exactly.
Thinking, feeling.
Yeah, and I tell my kids all the time, and I tell their parents all the time, and the parents will attest to this, like, it's not just fitness in here, right? I want them mentally healthy too.
Absolutely.
So like, if they're going through things at school, or if they're like having trouble here and there, and like, you know, and the parents will reach out, hey, he's having problems with his confidence. Can you talk to him? Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I've struggled with confidence. You know what I mean? Like, I've been there, done that.
Absolutely.
And it's like, my experience might not be your experience, but I know what you're feeling. And when you tell a kid, like, hey, I know what you're feeling, that opens up their eyes. They're like, all right, this guy really does care. And
Absolutely.
he can relate to what I'm going through, even though he's so much older than me.
Right. If you're showing empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Make them feel like.
And that's how you get the respect of them, right? They're like, the more you care, the more they know.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. The one idea I always keep coming back to is, as the trainer or the coach.
Yeah.
At least for me, you coach a lot of kids in wrestling.
Yeah.
But like, you're not their teacher. You're not the head coach of the team.
Yeah.
You're not. I'm not a parent. I'm not a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm not the head coach of whatever team they're
on.
I'm just the guy training them,
trying to get them better.
Don't have the. There's sometimes with the kids, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands in the cookie jar, where there's a lot of different opinions and things perspectives going at them.
Yeah.
Where sometimes the kids will feel like, if I do this, I might be judged by coach, parent, teacher. Where you're as the trainer, I don't have any bias. I just want whatever is best.
Yeah, I just want you to listen to me, and
the kid.
and I want you to, do the things I ask you to do, and that's it. It's plain and simple, right? Fitness is black and white. There's no special pill. It's black and white. Do the work. Yeah, do the work, and you're gonna see something.
See what else we got here. So as we're talking about kids, if you were looking back at your 16-year-old self, what is some advice that you would give yourself?
Take risks. You know what I mean? Take risks.
Why do you think you needed that advice?
I just, I've worked hard since I was little.
Yeah.
But when push came to shove, sometimes I didn't take the risk that I needed to become better, or to, put myself out there until I got older. And I just feel like if I would have done some things a little bit differently and took some risks, I don't know if the outcome would have been different, but it probably would have happened faster.
Were you afraid to fail?
Yeah, everybody's afraid to fail. I hate when people say I'm not afraid to fail. Everybody's afraid to fail. You have to be afraid to fail in order to be successful. You have to, because you don't care. If you're not afraid to fail, you don't care. You don't care enough.
Right. Or if you're not afraid to fail, failure is a prerequisite of success.
Exactly.
Because you're going to fail by just doing stuff. If you're not doing anything, it means you're not trying.
But also, is it really failing if you learn something from it? It's not failing, right? If you go out and you try to build a business and it doesn't work out, and then
you get the skill.
And then a couple of years later, you're like, I'm going to try again. You already know what you did wrong. So now you're going to fix it. And it might become successful the second time. So, I don't think of it as failure. I think of it as like a speed bump. It's like, oh, that didn't work. Let me, I learned from it. Let me move on.
Why do you think people are so afraid to fail?
Society. That's just the way it is. The judgment. Yeah, it's like, oh, he put all this effort into this and he still didn't get it. And dude, I'll just take fighting for example. I see these guys grind. You
still might lose or get knocked out.
Oh, they're going to. But the mental toughness that these guys have to have is second to none.
Yeah.
Because it's you versus another human being that's trying to hurt you or kill you in a cage, and you just spent 8 to 10 weeks working your ass off, and all your friends and family are there cheering you on, and you might be winning the whole fight and get clipped, and then you're done. So it's like you, at that point, you can't be afraid to fail. You can't. You're going to. Eventually, everybody takes a loss, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to, but you can't be afraid of that loss, because it's only going to make you better as a fighter. Yeah, I had said on the podcast, and I had asked him. Shout out to Zed. Zed's been coming in to wrestle, and this dude's just he's just a great human being, and he's a great athlete. There's so much more in the tank. I don't think he understands how much more is in his tank. He could be, when you say great fighter, the dude's a great fighter all around. He could do anything. He can box. He can wrestle, jiu-jitsu. He's an OG, but he's good. Yeah. And he said one of the best quotes. He was like, "I'm not out to beat the world. I'm just out to
be the best that I could be.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't saying he was afraid of failure, because he's just out to be the best that he could be. And he also doesn't define his identity as a fighter.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not like,
no.
He has a family, he's a father.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just wrap his whole identity around being a fighter. Exactly. So it's like he's not out to beat the world. He's just out to be the best
that he can be. Yeah.
So he said that, I was like, it's one of the best quotes.
Yeah.
One of the best quotes that I ever heard.
Yeah, he's, like I said, like I'm around a lot of guys that are just tough dudes, and Zed's up on the top tier. You know what I mean? Mentally tough, physically tough, and he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
You know. So
as you're going, what's your mission? What are you hoping to accomplish when it's all said and done?
I just want, like, I guess you could say, like, my legacy to be like, yeah, that dude was a workhorse.
Yeah.
Like, he just, that's what I want. And like, I get that all the time where like people will like, message me and be like, dude, I don't know how you do the things you do. I don't know. And that's what drives me. It's like, I want to prove that work ethic can get you anything you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's okay to fail, but as long as you keep trying, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really failure. And that's really my mission, is just to instill in every single one of my clients work ethic.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I just want you to be like, I'm going to work at this. And it doesn't have to be fitness. Like,
yeah, anything.
Let's just be like a job. Like, like I'm going to work. I'm going to sell more houses than anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put my, face to the stone, and I'm going to sell more houses than anybody in my firm. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a realtor, or I'm going to, get more convictions as a lawyer than anybody. Like, that's what I want, because you're going to do those things. You might fall short, but you're going to do those things and do a lot more than you're capable of if your work ethic is correct.
Absolutely. Someone's struggling.
Blue collar. Right? Yeah. Like, that's where we come from.
If somebody feels like they're struggling with work ethic, what would you say to them to get them going? Like, say I come to you and I'm like, I want to be a good wrestler. I'm just having trouble. Like, I'm not doing, or maybe I don't know what to do, or I don't know what makes somebody a hard worker. What do you tell me?
I'm going to tell you that you have to develop a system within you, that not only are you, working towards your goal, but you're also setting small goals along the way. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be a better wrestler is a broad statement, right? Yeah. What makes a better wrestler? That's the goals we have. I want to get better at this takedown. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want to get better at, I want to get better at cardio so I can last the full 6 minutes in the match and not get tired. I feel like people set these huge goals without setting little ones. And when they don't reach that huge goal in a certain amount of time, they give up. And that's where the work ethic comes in, right? It's like, we got to keep going. So how do you keep going? You set these small goals, right? Like, I want to eventually run a half marathon. Start with a 5K. Start with a mile. Every journey begins with a single step. Yep. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. And the biggest misconception of work ethic is like, there's a fine line between working hard and overworking. So like, it's like, you have to find that line where it's like, I'm pushing myself, but I also have a life outside the gym. I also have a life outside my work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you have to. And that'll build your work ethic, because it's like, when you take your rest days, when you take, time off, you miss whatever you were going to do. Like, I miss wrestling when I'm not wrestling. I miss working out if I don't get to work out. I miss, teaching when I don't get to teach. I miss that stuff. So when I get to do it, my work is better that way, if that makes sense.
And I feel like it always comes back to basics. People want to they can think of like the pyramid. Got to get the base of the pyramid first. Everybody wants to go straight to the top and build the foundations first. In our society, though, it's shortcuts. Everything's based off of shortcuts. It's like, how can I do this the quickest way possible? And that's great and all, right? But in the long run, take the long way. Because the harder route is what's going to build your character. Yeah.
and it's going to build your work ethic because you didn't get everything easy. You know what I mean? And let's go back to athletes, right? You got kid A that's very talented with no work ethic. They're in fifth grade. And then you got the other kid that's maybe not as talented and his work ethic is extremely good. So he goes through hardships where like he's not winning the things he should be winning and the other kid is, but he never gives up. By the time they get into high school, that kid B is probably going to be better than kid A.
Yeah.
Just because he developed a work ethic because nothing came easy to him.
Yeah.
And that's the harder route.
I come back to this thing where it's like, how long can you do the thing without seeing success?
Yeah. You told me that before, and it really like clicked with me.
Because then, you're just doing the thing to do the thing. Yeah. It's not being based off of like what the reward is.
What the reward is.
Like sometimes you have early succeeders with kids who maybe they're just better than everybody else.
Or they grew up fast.
So
like in wrestling, like obviously size and speed and ability come into play, but you also have a maturity. So like if you're in fifth grade and you're, 130 pounds and you look like a grown man.
Yeah.
And then the other kid that's 130 pounds is overweight. And obviously you're going to be able to beat that kid, right? But eventually that kid's going to grow up too.
At some point.
And that's when everything catches up. So if you don't develop that work ethic, it's not going to help you in, right? Like there's a lot of kids that see success as a youth that don't see it as you get older. And that's a fact. That's in every sport. You know what I mean? That's in every single sport.
We could all probably think of the one kid who's down.
I
6, 7, and then by the time, but it's also like
it goes both ways though.
It goes both.
I know kids that were successful in fifth grade and
they were still
because they had a work ethic.
Yeah. And like the thing is, when you're like 10, 11, 12, those aren't the most important games of your life.
But you think they are.
You think they are.
In your head.
They're important to you at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we as coaches have to, like, at that point, be the coach.
But then at the same time, we go back to the parents. And it's like, my kid was a 2-time national champ. And I'm like, oh, well, how old is he?
Yeah.
He's in third grade. Well, no one's recruiting him in third grade. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you still have to learn the basics in third grade. And that's where it comes back to, like, you see the success of kids with kids that have good coaches around them, good friends and teammates, and also parents that support them but don't over push them. It literally takes a village. Everybody says it does. It takes a village to develop, into a good athlete.
Yeah.
So
you work mostly with wrestlers. What other?
I've worked with a lot of sports. And if you look around, I have honestly, I don't know what happened, but I became like the softball person. I trained all these softball players for like the last I'd say 8 years, and these girls were killing it in college. Like Ava Franz, Villanova, dude, she was on ESPN, all that stuff. And then you got Billy Kerwood, who just got Player of the Year at Delaware. She set a whole bunch of records. She's actually looking into going into a pro softball league. I just talked to her before we hit the hill to see how the negotiations with that was going. Like Hallie McNenaman, she's a softball player for St. Joe's, and then lacrosse too. I deal with a lot of lacrosse players. A lot of my wrestlers are football players too, and it's awesome because I just looked at their football page and they all are in the top half of the weight room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They all are setting deadlift record and bench press record. So the program's obviously working. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the coolest thing is to see progress. Yeah. I do 6 to 8 week programs and I don't do the RPE. I take percentages of lifts. And at the end, if you get 101%, you know what I mean? You gain 5, 10, 15 pounds. Most of them gain 20, 30 pounds on lifts. I'm happy.
Right.
And that's huge. It's progressive overload. And that's the black and white of fitness. Progressive overload is the only way to get stronger. That's the only way. You're either adjusting the weight where you're adjusting the reps and sets.
Yeah.
And each week or bi-weekly, whatever it is. And just seeing the progress of that, you know what I mean? I work with anything. The only sport I haven't really worked with is tennis. We brought up that tennis, and like that's really the only one I've worked with. I worked with softball players, football players, track, basketball, obviously wrestling, fighting, jujitsu, all that stuff. But like I never had a tennis player.
And where are your most like when you go to write your workouts? Because the way your workouts are structured is definitely a little bit different. I think that's why they're so good.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you get your inspiration? Like, if you're going, so like for today's workout, that we did. What was your thought process? How did you come up with that?
My thought process today was just I wanted us to get a good strength workout combined with our hill sprints and with limited equipment, right? I don't want to be dragging, my barbell out there. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, how can I do that? And then it just becomes like when it comes to the lifting program, I try to do 2 main lifts a day, whether that's like, our bench press and push press. And then all the auxiliaries that come off of that are built to help that main lift. You know what I mean? And I do like a lot of supersetting. So it's like, we might do, front squats, and I want you to superset that with broad jumps because like it's a little bit different, but you're working the same muscle recruitment. And I try to, build the intensity throughout the workout. Like the main lifts, obviously, if you want to get stronger, you have to take rest. And that's like, it's hard for kids to understand that. You have to, I'm not telling you to take 5 minutes. That's too long. But like 2-3 minutes between a heavy lift, like if you're front squatting for a set of 2, the next set of 2, you have to recover. You're not going to be able to because you're never going to be able to reach where you really should be reaching. Your 1%, your 1 rep max is never going to be actually your 1 rep max if you're not taking the certain breaks. You know what I mean? So I build it off of that. I try to do the 2 main lifts and then like the auxiliaries, and then I always end with a burnout. Like it's something that's like, mentally challenging where it's like, dude, I'm done. I don't want to work out no more. And there's still this time thing or this 50 rep thing that I got to do. But like it builds up mental toughness. And that's like when I structure my programs, I want to build mental toughness. I want to build that where it's like, like I just did that. Like I just did all that. Yeah, I could do hard things. I just did all that. And these kids come out of here and you could just see the difference in their swagger. I want to say like their confidence.
I think for kids to like, doing hard things physically is the easiest and earliest teacher, I would say, to the mental and emotional toughness without getting into things where maybe they can't really conceptualize that part of it yet. Yep. But doing something hard physically, I think, is the best starting point. Yeah. To get into, I think it's a great gateway into the mental and emotional. This is a great transition into wrestling. I would imagine, I've never wrestled, I'm not a wrestler, but I would imagine there's a huge mental game to wrestling.
So that's how my workouts get structured. Yeah. It's like my mental from wrestling, it's just like go. When you develop that and you develop like lifting programs like that, it's like, you could do as much as you want, but the aspect of just doing hard things a bunch of times, like doing it over and over and over again, it becomes easier. Yeah. Right? Just a repetition. Yeah, repetition. Yes. Mental repetition, right? Like even just writing in a journal, you know what I mean? Like that's mental repetitions. Yeah. So like that creates mental toughness.
Yeah. Journaling, I've spoken about it a lot. Yeah. That's my favorite tool.
And that's something I took from you. Yeah. Right? Like, and we talked about that, like sharing ideas. That's something I took from you where I was like, dude, he's right. I should be writing in a journal how I feel, my workouts, follow what my food is. And like I have OCD and anxiety. Yeah. Very, very bad. Like I go to therapy once a week. I'm pretty sure I have PTSD from what happened with my son.
Yeah.
You know, the journaling has helped me so much because I can go back and reflect on how I was feeling that day and what I did, or reflect on like why I felt that way because I wrote it down.
Yeah. And then
You know what I mean?
see the growth.
Exactly.
You know?
Like you could take mental notes, but it's not the same as you seeing it on paper.
Absolutely.
It's permanent there too. You know what I mean?
One of the things starting out I really liked about it was like, to me, it was like a cheat code. It was just me. I didn't have to talk to nobody. I didn't have to answer any questions. I just wrote it down and then closed the book, and then that was it. Like I didn't have to talk to anybody. You know, I didn't want to talk. I just got everything bottled up. So it was a good release to be able to just write. And then, which I'm a big advocate of it now. Is just like, dude, mental health is a serious problem in our world today. Yeah. Especially with social media and athletes. Yeah. And young women and young men, they see these, fitness influencers and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, I want to look like that, or I want to do this, I want to be able to do that. And let's be honest, 90% of the time, these people are portraying something that's not real. Yeah. And unachievable without doing certain things, shortcuts. And that causes mental harm. Yeah. Well, it comes like, we're all guilty of doing it. Yeah. You're either in a room or you're scrolling. Yeah. On Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and then you're like, what do? You start to compare yourself, which is normal. We naturally compare ourselves, but comparison really is the thief of joy. And so we just got to remember that, like, everybody runs their own race. Your own, you can't skip steps, which are your journey. My journey's not supposed to be yours. Yours is not supposed to be mine. It's all different. It's just, so focus. And then when you stay focused on stay in your lane, then you compare yourself less because you're focused on. You just hit it right on the head for me. Focus on what you got to do. Especially in business, right? Yeah. We talked about in the beginning this industry kind of being watered down, right? And then you go in and, if you own a small gym and there's other small gyms around, you kind of like start comparing yourself, like, am I doing as good as them? I stopped doing that so long ago because all it does is create stress. I stay in my lane. I do what I do, and I don't care. I don't want to say I don't care, but I don't try to be something you're not. I don't try to be something I'm not, and I'm not out here for anyone else's benefit but mine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not out here trying to prove to anybody that I'm this person or that person, or I'm great at this, I'm great. And like, the old quote is like, if you're good at something, you tell everybody, and if you're great at something, they tell you. I live by that. I never talk about how good I am at this and this and third. If people tell me I'm good, that's when I'm like, all right, like, exactly. Yeah, that's a huge thing. And once I learned that, the weight was lifted off my shoulders. It's like you said, we're running our own race. My business is different than your business. I do things different than you. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And that's why collaboration is good. It is with the right people. Yeah. Let's put it that way. Because you don't want it to. You don't want it to be toxic. Yeah, exactly. Work together. Yeah, work together, and this industry, some of it's cutthroat. Like, people will poach your clients, and they'll DM them, and I'm running this special, I'm running that special, and it's kind of like, you could get mad about that, or you can laugh it off. Where it's like, I know that I created such a good environment that my clients aren't going anywhere. And once you get like that, stress is gone. It's like, dude, you can have as many specials as you want. They come because of me. You know what I mean? Like, they come because of Rockne. Yeah. They're not coming just to get a workout. They're coming because they click with you. The impact that you have. Exactly. For the equipment. And once you realize that, the cortisol levels drop. Absolutely. So what's next for you? What's next for the business? So right now I'm trying to start a wrestling club. Just 2 nights a week. I was trying to go through my school district that I work at, Interboro, but they're doing a bunch of construction. And like you said, like in the beginning, I just said, like, take risks.
I was like, dude, screw it. I'm gonna start it out of here. So I put more mats in. Like my mats cover from here all the way down.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna start with like 20 kids. And then if it builds to where I wanted to build at, I'll buy another location and just do wrestling out of there and do my strength and conditioning out of here. The main goal is to do that. And just impact as many lives as I can. Impact as many kids as I can. I love, going to these kids signing days. Like I love it.
Dude, it's awesome. And you feel
it's great.
You feel great when the kid asks you to I've gone to a couple signing days.
Yeah.
Like it's very rewarding.
Yeah, it's awesome. And like I said, I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to in wrestling. And I feel like that was part of God's plan because it was like, this is going to make this guy hungry. So I'm hungry still for knowledge of that. I'm still hungry to help people succeed in their sport where I did. You know what I mean? I feel like if I would have done everything I wanted to do,
might not have the same perspective.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be doing this.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And that, you say, like, haunts you a little. Like, it doesn't go away. Like,
it doesn't. And I tell my dad that all the time. I'm like, Dad, because I'm in here and I'm wrestling with these, 18, 19-year-olds. And, like, they're beating me, but, like, I'm sticking in the best I can. And I'm like, Dad, dude, I definitely could have wrestled. You know what I mean? I definitely, if I didn't get sick, I probably would have been successful. And he tells me all the time, he's like, it was part of God's plan.
Yeah.
He made it so you developed a work ethic that was stone. Like no one could break that. If you would have gotten everything that you wanted out of that sport, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing because you would have been burned out and you would have been satisfied. And he's like, now you're not satisfied and you're not going to be satisfied. And that's what drives you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think as we start to wrap this up, this is, I have a book club with with high school kids that we run every other Sunday.
Absolutely.
One of the ideas that we were talking about the other day was a paradigm shifting. I did my last episode on that and the importance of that. So, think about how even just your language determines your paradigm. You could have looked at that and been like, well, I should have been all this. I should have been all that.
Yeah.
But now you're viewing the situation, right, as you didn't. This was part of God's plan because of what you learned. Now that's your drive. This should be able to give back to others. Having that perspective is way different than saying, well, I could have been this and I could have been that, and kind of feeling sorry for yourself because of what you went through. And the only person who has control over that, the way they see that is you. The power of a paradigm is transformational.
And it's like, let's be honest, some of the best coaches in athletics and everything weren't the best athletes. They
did.
Yeah, you don't have to be the best of the best to be a great coach. No. You don't. I know MMA, coaches that they fought and they were semi-successful, but they weren't hugely successful. And these dudes are just so knowledgeable. It's ridiculous. And that's where I found grace in, where I was like, I wasn't the best wrestler. You know what I mean? I wasn't the strongest guy in the weight room. I wasn't that. But from my work ethic and because I'm so hungry and I'm still evolving, that's the biggest thing. Is like some people stop evolving, right? I'm still learning. Like my nephew comes in, he'll teach me something here and there. I got guys that come in and they'll be like, yo, did you ever do it like this? And I'm picking it. Picking it. So the next time I do a seminar or I do something like that, I'm using it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's how you know everything. You know nothing.
Yeah, you know nothing. With wrestling, especially, the sport's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So guys that were good like 20 years ago, they might not know the techniques of this age. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like funking going on. Like that's what we call it in wrestling, and like a lot of play wrestling going on. That wasn't huge when I was growing up. Like it was all like drills and live. And now it's like Penn State's taking over where it's like all they do is play wrestle. It's like a 60% flow and they're going through it and they're going live and it's nonstop action, but they're not worrying about scoring points. They're worrying about just moving and learning positions. So like it's like you learn to evolve when you're hungry. When you're hungry for it.
I think one of my philosophies, like life philosophies, is you have to be a lifelong,
and a fan. You have to be a lifelong fan of whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
Absolutely.
you can't just, again, using wrestling. Like I watch NCAAs all the time.
Yeah.
I watch youth wrestling all the time. I watch, if I'm at home, I'm on Flow Wrestling.
You're watching anything.
I'm doing it because I want to learn. I want to learn, and I don't care like how old these kids are. Like, there's a kid, right now. His name's Bo Bassett. That he's a phenom, and like he's only 17, 18 years old, and like you can learn so much from this kid. His pace is
crazy.
It's unreal, and it's like, how did you develop that? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
How did you develop that?
Absolutely. What did
that
you do?
pace? Yeah. What did you do? And I'm like online, like, what did he do? You know what I mean? Like, and he's, 20 years younger than me, but you can learn something from everyone.
Agreed.
And if you don't believe that, you're not going to be successful.
Well, you're doing amazing things. You're making an impact on, a lot of, not just kids, but people. And I think when it comes to coaching and doing what we do, a lot of our earliest teachers and mentors, people that inspire us, are coaches, middle school, high school. So what I think you're doing is super inspirational.
Good coach can make you, and a bad coach can break you.
Absolutely. And knowing that we kind of have the same mission keeps me driving.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
We got a quick video around so everybody can see the gym.
Yeah.
Let's see if we got this here.
Yeah, get all the flags. More coming. They got to come in.
There you have it. That's Hall of Fame PT.
Yes, sir.